Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to this press conference. First of all, may I inform you that we have interpretation in English, French, German, Italian, Spanish, Polish and Dutch, Finnish and Czech. So these are the languages available. My name is Pavel Svoboda. I'm a Czech MEP from the EPP group and chair of the Jury Committee, the Committee on Legal Affairs. I am here, and my colleagues as well, on behalf of a large informal working group calling for an end of the clock change. The working group consists of over 80 MEPs from all 8 political groups from many member states. That means that this issue at stake has become a politically horizontal issue and interests to the solution of the problem comes from all of the political spectrum. It is for the first time that the European Parliament will vote on a resolution calling for an end of the biannual clock change. The resolution is formally tabled by the Transport Committee. We as MEPs have pushed hard for this resolution. We were contacted by many action groups from member states that have collected thousands of signatures. Indeed, there is a large number of national initiatives calling for an end of the biannual clock setting. There are hundreds of petitions coming to the European Parliament on this topic. Oral questions on the topic have been asked to the Commission. We have found at least since 2010, every year there is at least an oral question asking the European Commission to move. So I think that this is a political background that really makes timely a move in the European Parliament. I should not omit the fact that a number of national parliaments are dealing with the questions and in fact are waiting for us in the European Union to deal with it within the competencies that the European Union has received from the member states when it comes to this biannual clock change. So I hope that the resolution will receive strong support, and as you know well, we are going to vote on that tomorrow at noon. There is a number of members of the Parliament that wish to take the floor, so may I just ask everybody, you are trained to the 1-minute speeches, so I don't have a hammer here, so I don't have any weapons to control that, but may I begin with Mrs. Hautala, who is the Vice President of the European Parliament.
Thank you very much. And Pavel, I think we all have to thank you for your tireless efforts on convening our informal action group since some years. But indeed, for the first time tomorrow, the European Parliament will expose what its view on the clock change actually is. We have had questions, we have had all kinds of actions, but never before the European Parliament has expressed its view. And I would like to emphasize the scientific knowledge which is growing of the disadvantages of biannual clock changes. We know very well that the human organism is a very sensitive, has an internal clock, and to disturb purposefully, deliberately that internal clock twice a year is something that is perceived and can be seen as causing damage to human health. And I think we have to take this decision tomorrow on the basis of the latest scientific knowledge of the impact. We all have our personal experience, and that's not so important, but may I just conclude by saying that I have a personal experience because my son was born during the night when the Finnish clocks were for the first time in 1981 on the 29th of March turned towards the summertime, and I was very confused as a young mother.
I didn't measure it. It was perfect. For a vice president of the parliament, it was perfect. Now, may I ask Mrs. Kumpula from SND to take the floor?
Yes, my name is Mia-Petra Kumpula. I'm a Finn also in the ITRE committee, and then the history of the biannual clock change was the saving of energy, and then there is a very good study now by the Parliament Research Services that I recommend to many, that it's ex post impact assessment on the EU summertime arrangements, and gives a lot of information, even though we see that there's not very new Commission research on the idea, and then I think of course that Commission have to prepare good documentation and to get rid of this. As Heidi also said, that the health issues are in the core of the importance nowadays, as we have more knowledge, and even the Nobel Prize was given to the people who really studied how we are depending on the natural 24-hour rhythms and then rituals that should be respected, and this is an artificial clock change that is now decided by the people and should be then get rid of by the people as well. But I noticed, and I want to underline here one concrete idea also, this is not about making one time zone for EU. I face people still today, even MEPs, who say to me that I don't want to have one time zone for EU. So please, everybody here, make your efforts to inform people that we do not make one time zone. Actually, the time zone, like in Finland, we are in the same with Estonia, but different with Sweden. And we could decide it by our own government, that whether we want to change to go together with the Swedes. But what we cannot do nationally is to stop this date when the clocks are switched. It was a very good idea to harmonise it, to get it in the same day at the same hour, so to get the internal market also more easily to adapt. And what we are all activists in this group in the same opinion, we should stick to the same principles even after get rid of this clock change. So I do not want to see the European Union that some member states do change the time and some member states do not. So a coherent time for everyone, but then the whether it's Greenwich +1 or Greenwich +2 or Greenwich -1, that's up to the national decision then to take.
Thank you. Mrs. Schreier-Pierik.
Voorzitter, dank u wel.
Thank you very much. I think that now we need to be active. 20% of the population in Europe, so we're talking about 100 million people, and I'm also speaking from my own experience as a mother with small children. It disrupts the family. Older people are disrupted as well, and we've got a lot of signatures, and we looked at the figures also in the Netherlands. We looked at the number of deaths on the road as well as a result of it. And so I want to be very, very clear. We need to fight for this. And this is something which really affects people twice a year. If we're talking about energy, we know that that's no longer the case. And that's a somewhat outdated approach. We need to look at people and their everyday lives. And then people are saying, well, what does Microsoft think about it? It's we've been told that this is something that we can change if we make a decision, and so I really think that we need to tackle this issue. I know that some colleagues want to see more surveys. Well, if we wait for more surveys, but we already have the figures and the Nobel Prize winners. That's what they won the prize for on the basis of looking at biorhythms. And if we don't listen to them, then I think we're not doing what people expect of us. And so I hope that within all of the groups tomorrow there will be support for the motion that we're proposing. And then I think we can go to citizens and say, we're listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Merja Kilonen from GUE.
Thank you, dear colleagues. It's a real pleasure to be here with our team, which have worked this Stop the Biannual Clock Change for over than 2 years. And I think it's very important for us to act, not make new investigations. It's time to change the legislation. And I know that there's lots of investigations made from human beings and also about animals, animal health in agriculture areas. And if we can't see the problem, then we can't read the papers which already exist in this Parliament also. And because I work in Transport Committee with my colleagues, I know that there's also speaking about how it affects the transport area, and I can tell you everything can be solved. There's no problems which can't be solved if we stop biannual clock change. That it's time for decision, not for the new investigation to start. So, dear friends, let's change the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andrzej Grzyb.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Szanowni Państwo, kiedy ostatnio...
Thank you very much. Ladies. Thank you very much indeed. We have this resolution which is also being considered by the Transport Committee, but I have to say we didn't think that we would make such rapid progress, and visibly the Transport Committee recognised the validity of our arguments, and that is why this resolution is being debated today and will be put to the vote tomorrow at noon. And I very much hope that all of the members of the Parliament will pay attention to this debate and will vote in favour of the resolution. In Finland, as well as in Poland, my own country, this issue has already been dealt with by our parliaments because we have an initiative to do away with the clock change. This initiative was approved by the Polish Parliament, but it is currently pending because of course European rules that have to be respected, but there is certainly popular support for this initiative. We've already talked about some of the issues pertaining to society and to behaviour, and I think there should be backing for these efforts from Spain right up to the northernmost reaches of Europe, and that is why I'm very happy to be part of this effort. Now, I should also like to emphasise the role of Herbert Roy, who is now member of the North Rhine-Westphalia government and is not here, but he was one of the very first members to launch this initiative, and in actual fact it was him who invited me to join your ranks, and I just wanted to pay tribute to his parliamentary initiative.
Mrs. Jätemäki from ALDE.
Good afternoon, everyone. I come from Environmental Committee, but I want to tell you that I agree totally with the previous speakers, but I would like to stress that the annual clock change only confuses people and creates unnecessary misunderstanding. And the clock change is also that kind of EU regulation that we should get rid of. And we have already stressed here that it's not good for our health. That's maybe for me one of the most important reasons. Then I would like to say that I don't know what's the result tomorrow when we will vote, but I hope that it doesn't take 20 or 30 years to get rid of this legislation. But we must be determined and tireless. We know that today we will vote on transnational lists, and it has been on the table and it has been voted here in the Parliament during 20 years' time, so that I hope that tomorrow we can vote on this clock change issue and put stop on it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Not all the members could have fit to the umpire here, so I ask the members present whether you want to add anything that has not been said so far. Mr. Štefanec from Slovakia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add just one more fact, and this is the fact that majority of the people on this planet don't use clock change. Clock change is the artificial rule, and I'd like to come back to the natural rule. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gesine Meissner from Germany. Actually, I've fought for the Liberals for several years in Germany and here in the Parliament as well, for ending of the clock change. And I just want to tell you, I talked about that quite often with the Commissioner for Transport, who is responsible for that, and she is scared that in case we get rid of the clock change 2 times a year, it could be really a split all over Europe, that all the nations take their own time. And of course, we should look for a legislation that has a harmonized approach, harmonized stop of clock the change, change the clock, of course. That is the right way to go forward, and that's what we are going to fight for tomorrow. And I think so many reasons already are mentioned by the colleagues, and they're really absolutely severe to take care of. And it's against our inner rhythm. That's what all the chronobiologists say, that we are dependent as human beings on the stars and the sun, so to say. That is our inner clock. And the inner clock is changed with this change for summertime in a not healthy way. And that's why so many people suffer out of it. And last but not least, the energy saving that was the aim to have achieved by the summertime is not there. And so really it's not understandable that we still have this clock change.
I just want to tell to my colleagues from the MEPs, that we are voting only at 12:15, so don't be nervous, you know. So now there are no interventions from the members, so let's give the floor to the journalists. May I ask you to present yourself, to introduce yourself? Yes.
Oui, bonjour, c'est Alberto Argenzio dell'agence italiana.
I'm from the Italian answer. Your colleague was talking about a cross-party group, but I'm not seeing a lot of MEPs from southern European countries. What's the opinion of MEPs from the south? I think this is a little bit misleading. Biennial clock change. And for the Second World War, there was just one time, solar time being the idea. I mean, that might be a possibility. And as I say, what do people from the south mean?
Sorry, I overlooked one member. May I respond to the questions? Or, basically, what we are aiming at is stopping the time change. That's the goal. We are doing it. The main reason is the grave health consequences that are caused by the time change. The rest is, let's say, the other reasons are of lesser importance than that. A protection of, let's say, minorities, of the weak parts of the society is characteristic for developed societies. So that's the main reason why we are doing this. The rest are technicalities, I would rather say. But maybe our colleague wishes to intervene.
I just want to say that this...
Yeah, just to make clear...
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm behind you. So I'm Šoltes from Slovenia, MEP, from Green Group, and I also really agree this initiative to put this on the agenda of European Parliament because it's very important topics. After so many years of this biannual clock change, it's time to put the arguments on the table, pro and contra, and to see the consequences, the advantage and disadvantage of this decision. And I hope so. This is the main reason for the Parliament to take the floor and to take discussion on these very serious topics, and to put also the arguments on the health side and the arguments of the energy side and the arguments of the human being side, and to put these all arguments on the level of democracy, and then to bring the final decision. And I'm really happy also that Finland started with this serious discussion, and as you know, Finland is a very practical nation for several years, so I hope so that they could also bring the power and encourage the others to maybe follow this way. But for sure, you could also find the reason why this biannual clock change is good. So therefore, tomorrow it's time to listen to all arguments and then to put in the public the final decision. Thank you.
Hello, this is Lara Malvesi from the Spanish Newswire EFE. First, I think that nobody actually answered my colleague Alberto about the south of Europe, about why there is not so much support from the south of Europe. And second question, according to the information you have, what do you forecast that it's going to be the result tomorrow? Thank you.
I'd maybe like to, I was kind of expecting that there would be the question that why so many Finns around this behind the podium? When we have very little daylight during the winter months, it's even worse to interfere with the internal clock because, it's the daylight that regulates the melatonin in the blood, which again regulates the sleep-wake cycle. So I'm sure that because all the 13 Finnish MEPs unanimously support abolition of the clock change, it's not by coincidence. And I think we would also need to understand that even if there is less maybe support on average in some southern countries, it does disturb small children, elderly people, animals, everywhere. So it's not just the north-south question, but it is a more severe question for health, I believe, in the north.
Ja, vielen Dank. Ich bin Dieter Koch aus Deutschland.
Hello, I'm Dieter Koch from Germany, and I've been in the Parliament now for over 25 years, and a few activities that have met with so much encouragement on the part of my voters as this, because the bulk of the population is in favour of this and is really keen for Europe at long last to do something, regardless of whether it is 80% who are okay with it. Well, we've got 20% who really suffer from this. And we have to act for them rather than for those who say we don't have a problem with this.
Ich komme aus Österreich und wir haben hier in Zentraleuropa.
I'm from Austria, and in Central Europe, or Central European MEPs are concerned about this. What's the issue? It's just a question of putting an end to the biennial resetting of the clocks. That's the main issue here. And of course, there are facts that not least came to the fore about the impact of this. So we're talking about billions worth of cost on the economy. It has impact health, particularly the health of children and the elderly. So enough already.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais ajouter aussi quelques mots. Premièrement,
can I add a few words. Thanks very much, Pavel. I'm very proud indeed to have you at the head of this group. But really, this is a cross-cutting initiative across countries. And basically, we are responding to what our citizens are calling for. We are responding to the people in our countries, and this is our response. Now, if I can reply to one of the what's the opinion of members from southern European countries? This is an issue we discussed within the EPP group, and there was nobody really objecting to this initiative. Tomorrow, in the course of the discussion, I'm sure these members will speak and they'll also vote, and so in a way that will be a clear reply. But in the course of discussion, at least with an EPP group, nobody protested vehemently against this initiative.
I just wanted to add something on the question raised by the journalist from the Nobel Prize winners. They didn't look north or south. They were looking at biorhythms. And it's exactly the same in the south as in the north. And that's what we're looking at. And I'd like to ask you a question. Have you carried out a study of your population, of your readers? We did this in the Netherlands. There was a paper that carried out a certain, and 60% of people wanted to have a single time, and we have to have a proposal. And so in my country, we're neutral. I mean, there are lots of people who want to stick to summertime, but that's we have to listen to what citizens want, and I think it's exactly the same for citizens in the south as it is in my country.
We are heading towards the end, but before that, may I give once again, maybe you hear the voice of the south.
I might be the noticed MEP in the Parliament, but I have speak with my South colleagues. I can't speak on all behalf, but what they have been worried is the time zone issue. And if it's not changed, as it isn't, it seems not to be a problem. So I think we have a similar thinking around Europe, and it's not depend where you live. But what worries my colleague from South, they are asking us not to change the similar time zone to whole Europe, and I think it is clear that that's not the case in this serious legislative business. Thank you.
Two more interventions, but very short, please. Very short.
Ja, ich mach's kurz. Ich mach's nochmal auf Deutsch.
Yes, I'll speak German this time round, and just once again on this issue of the South, because the fact of the matter is that the national initiatives have come more from North and Central Europe than from Southern Europe. Now, the fact of the matter is that they have more daylight hours, but it goes darker earlier in Southern Europe. But this has a problem of chronobiology, so you've got this problem with 20% of the population across Europe.
I don't want to repeat what was said, that the inner clock argumentation, but yes, I do have colleagues from Romania and South countries, and they don't have national decisions, but I think it's not because it's not discussed true nationally like it is in some countries, but also to notice that around the Mediterranean, the African countries are not using the two time zones. The Turkish abolished, they used it earlier, but not anymore. And then it's, as mentioned, not globally done. And many countries nearby EU, of course, follow what EU is doing. So I'm quite concerned that once we will get rid of it, also the neighbouring country will not follow it anymore, because then it's more practical overall to work it. And if you look at the map, Spain should be in the same time zone with Portugal. clearly in the same Greenwich time, but they chose nationally to be the same with the France. So that is possible to choose nationally whether you want to have Greenwich +1, Greenwich +2, so you can a little bit coordinate with your neighbours. And this is not to unify time zones, this is only not to have the date when you have to switch to summertime and in the fall back.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being with us today. We are at your disposal now after the press conference for individual interviews, if you wish so. Thank you.